guess we'll see.
You're just always swaying back and forth in the thing.
So
You want me to sit on it?
No. No.
I'll use it. It wouldn't do to have you in the floor.
We should start with you and me both like stepping on a scale and determining which one of us should take the weaker stool. That should be our opener. Like, what if we did a weekly weigh-in?
Well, it would be me. I mean, it would not be me.
Yeah, I think it would.
I outweigh you,
the
I
doctors.
bet.
The doctors made you lose all that weight for
Yeah,
before
but
the
I
vaccine.
still outweigh you, I bet.
So I've got the. Does your phone ever like show you pictures from the past, like on Facebook? Probably not Facebook.
Yeah, I
anyways,
saw
Facebook.
us on there with something here not long ago.
So I saw, that was what I was talking about. It was like 5 years, but pre-COVID, it was 2019, and you and me were talking about the first Krispy Kreme sundae.
Ah.
And we were sitting in here. The room looked very different. This is before we'd redone it and made it into the 10,000 square foot studio that it is now. But you and me were talking about Krispy Kreme sundae, and I was just sitting there laughing about, because you were talking about how, like, obviously the Shekinah glory and the lights on sign at the Krispy Kreme is very similar in terms of the
we
hot.
started shooting these over in my office.
Yeah, we did.
You and Joanna and what's his name?
Was it Joseph back
Joseph
in the day? Yeah.
would come over there, and we'd sit in those
Yeah.
two little chairs that are in my office, and
Well, and that we had to stop doing it.
then we
'cause
transitioned to this.
Well, the chairs were too comfortable. I wanted to like fall asleep.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
got
you
that
just-
rich Corinthian leather
yeah,
and
you
just
kind of sink down into
and the
things.
microphone was like right in my face. Now we've got an overhead microphone. It's just much
Yeah.
better now. You and me can move
The lighting.
more freely. I can move back here. People can see. Yeah, of course, the lighting obviously, greatly accentuates our natural charm.
And the TV with the picture of nighttime on it.
Yes, do you guys see this? This is actually a picture of what things will look like during the eclipse today. We're just going to leave that
Oh, that's
up.
right. That's the
Got
day.
the eclipse. How did you forget? The rapture's today and you forgot all about it.
Oh,
Here's the
gosh.
other funny thing about that video is that I was wearing the same shirt. I saw that video.
The day?
Yeah, 5 years ago. So here you go, guys. Here's my gingham shirt or whatever this is. I'm still wearing it on the recap. These
black and white
five
check.
years later.
It's like a tablecloth.
Yep, just roll me. Well, I'm going to have to lay across the table after this stool breaks. So, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, we've got this. The eclipse is happening today. You got any notes on the eclipse?
I don't know what I don't know what all the hype is. There are eclipses all the time,
You have it in your research document.
But I know
Joanna says you need to research more deeply, and then you'll understand.
I did see the list of the names of the cities it was going over, like Rapture, Nineveh. How many Ninevehs is it going over? Nineveh, Texas, Nineveh. And I'm just thinking, I don't know. I just don't get the hype. It's so funny. Ever so often people come back. Jesus is coming back on the 8th of April.
This is it, yeah.
Do they just not ignore the fact that he said no man knows the day? If you say he's coming back on this day, I will guarantee you the rapture will not happen today.
That's exactly right. And I saw this one. I almost sent it to. I should have sent it to you. It was this guy talking about. He says, "Now I'm not saying the rapture is going to happen on April the 8th, which, of course, regardless of what he's about to say, that's what he believes.
Yeah.
That he did." And he says, "But I was reading this week, and he said in Exodus chapter 4, verse 8, and we know that the date 4/8 is coming up, but Exodus chapter 4, verse 8 says, God will do a mighty work, and you should wait for the second work of God." And he's like, this is the second eclipse in this many years. And he's like, I just found that very interesting. And I'm just like, brother, first of all, when Moses, let's find a word from the Lord.
Looked and fled.
Let's find
the Jordan turned back. That's going to happen. During this eclipse, the sea looked and fled, and the Jordan turned back.
The Spirit guided your thumb as you opened the Bible just then. First of all, can I talk about this for a second? You want me to just do a rant? Can I do a rant? First of all, number one,
Have at it.
Moses did not have the Gregorian calendar, so there was no such thing as April 8th when Moses wrote that down. I can't remember all the Jewish months. Shame on me as a Hebrew scholar, but obviously the first Jewish month is Nisan, and then after that you have other months. All has to do with the calendar of the moon. The Gregorian calendar has nothing to do with the moon, which is important in light of the eclipse. Secondly, when Moses wrote that down, he didn't have chapters and verses. So neither of the things that you're connecting have any bearing on what the scripture says.
I don't know.
What in the world? I'm just saying all this so Pastor doesn't have to.
I believe Christ is coming back. I believe it soon. But when you start naming dates, it's crazy. And I don't know, God, the Lord does give signs, but I don't get all hyped up about it. I would love if Jesus came back today.
That would be great.
It's like this guy used to come to me all the time. Now, I won't mention the president's name, but he used to come and tell me that this president was the Antichrist.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
That doesn't bother me.
See, I always liked Jimmy Carter.
No.
I saw one thing, though, that when the way that the path of the totality is I think, was it Airbnb that released it? And you can see just how along the path of totality there are so many places. Everything is just booked solid all the way through the U.S. It's just fascinating.
It just amazes me. My wife told me, I went by, because the diners closed on Monday, I was at the hospital at 5:20 this morning to see some of our folks.
Oh, okay.
And
good.
then I came back here to the office, and then I left when Cracker Barrel opens at 7. You used to open at 5, which you should go back and start doing that. And she told me to pick up because they've got the glasses today, and I forgot to
You
do
got to go
it.
get your glasses?
Yeah, she wants some glasses to look at.
To look at the eclipse. Okay.
The eclipse.
I was going to say, I need to pick up her prescription at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
That's a tough order.
No.
From Cracker Barrel.
No, I go there on Mondays for breakfast because the diner's closed on Mondays.
Okay.
So.
That would be really funny if Cracker Barrel just did the full Walmart routine. Like they just put a Lens Crafters in there in the old country store.
Yeah. Post office, put a post office.
Pick up your pharmaceuticals. It's all there. There in Cracker Barrel. It's been a long time since I've been to Cracker Barrel, but my mouth is watering right now. I think you've done something to me with this.
It's good.
We've really come out hot today. I'm talking about the dates.
He's already been on a rant.
I've been on a rant. You're saying that you just called Cracker Barrel to the carpet, saying that they need to open at 5.
They do.
It's hard to find good help these days, though. It's probably a work shortage kind of thing.
Probably.
Speaking of work shortages, did we talk about now? Because we haven't been together in a couple of weeks here. It's good to see you, by the way.
Has it really?
It's been a couple of weeks.
I didn't realize that.
Well, last week we took off for Easter.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Both of
and
us
the week before that, I was here the week before, but the week before that I was gone.
Did we talk about the Key Bridge collapse though? Because that's like that.
I think we did
That,
because that's
we were
right there in Baltimore.
Yeah, that was right down the road.
That's your city.
Well, yeah, I guess it used to be. I haven't lived there in a really long time, but yeah, I think about them a lot. Yeah, the Key Bridge collapse. That just made me think when we were talking about the work shortage, because man, I'm praying for that city because it's like it's going to be so long before people can get to work on time. I mean,
have they even started cleaning that up?
Yeah, they started cleaning it. They started a couple days after. I think they were trying to recover the bodies and that sort of thing first. I don't know exactly how all that works, but yeah, they've started cleaning it up. And they're going to have to rebuild.
Have they moved that ship out of there?
I don't know. Well,
you're supposed to know these things. That's your city.
I know. I should know these things. I need to have. I need to open
your
up.
Your daddy should be going down there every day, sending a report back.
I called him when I was like, Dad, have you been anywhere near that bridge recently? And he said no, because we usually take the tunnel. It's such a big city. There's multiple of these thoroughfares in and out, and we would usually come from where we take the tunnel. Didn't usually take the bridge. Took the bridge before, but...
Boy, I bet the traffic up there.
That's what I'm saying. It's going to be years where it's going to be like that. So I'm going to, at some point I'm going to have to look and see if there's any good Key Bridge memes with the bridge falling over. Is there anything yet, Joanna? I know that you monitor the memes very closely.
You know,
we're still
they
in
could
grief.
they
Still
could probably put that thing up a lot faster if the government completely got out of it. Really, they probably could put it up in record time if they just let people, go and work on it.
Well, there was something like that with the Golden Gate Bridge, because they were trying to put up, this is a horrible thing, but they had to put up those like suicide prevention nets.
Yeah.
And that was one of those things, it was just in development hell for forever. Like nobody could, the government contract couldn't get it done, and they finally gave it to someone privately, and they had it done in a couple of months.
That's always true. Always true.
Take it to the private
Give it
sector.
to the private sector, they'll get it done.
That's what Jimmy Carter always said.
What is it about Jimmy
I don't
Carter?
know. It's just funny. I just thought I'd bring him back into this. I don't know.
You're gonna hear his name one more time.
Yeah, that's right. You're gonna hear it. So speaking of, so I don't know what else. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about before we get to the message? I know you always come in with a lot to talk about.
I don't know. I'm kind of just tired this morning.
Really?
Yeah.
You look good though.
Well,
how's your back doing?
I'm always looking good, but no, it's fine. I'm just kind of I'm wiped out.
Oh,
yesterday I tell you what, yesterday
what.
afternoon,
All right.
I went to hear. Is his name Max Lane?
Oh,
The guy that does
Max McLean, the C.S. Lewis
Yes,
thing?
the C.S.
You got to go see that?
Oh, yes.
Was it great?
Oh, it was incredible.
I'm sorry I missed
Incredible. It was 90 minutes of just pure fascination.
So it was. Now this isn't the most reluctant convert. This is something
No,
else.
this was higher up and further in. It was C.S. Lewis just talking about his life and coming to Christ. Man, it was so good. How he came to Christ and, how he wrote and, where he came up with the screw tape letters, and his first book out was Pilgrim's Regress, which I did not realize that, but I should have because I have the book. Anyway, how he came up with Mere Christianity. I did not realize, or I had forgotten, that Mere Christianity came out of the broadcast that he did in Britain in 1940 during the Blitz.
I didn't realize that either.
They put him on the radio, and literally they recorded all of that, or he wrote all that down, and the book, Mere Christianity, is basically what he did on the radio in Britain during the Blitz in the 1940s.
So he's giving sort of a biography in his own words.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. And this guy's just, what an amazing brain to remember all of this dialogue. Because when it's a one-man show, you don't have anybody else you can rely on.
So it's just him. Just him talking?
Just him talking. He's got a desk, he's got his big chair, and some sweet, sweet people at the church gave us tickets to this.
Oh,
And
cool.
we were on the second row,
Wow.
dead center. So when he sat down in his big leather chair, he was looking dead at me.
Wow.
He was talking to me the whole time. I was
So you just felt
I was
it.
so moved. It was
Yeah.
so special. Anyway,
Did you get his autograph afterwards?
no, I didn't, but I did stay. He did a 10, 15-minute kind of
Q&A
ask
sort of
me
thing,
anything you want to ask me. But this guy, he talked about how he was saved as an adult, how he came to Christ later in life as an adult. And the first book that he read was Screw Tape Letters.
Yeah, fascinating.
Now, he does a thing on that. Now, I would love to see that.
Yeah, me too.
I'd
Let's go
love to see
together
that.
if he ever brings that one.
Well, if he
back.
does, let's just get up a group.
I'd have a lot of fun with that.
See, nobody in the creative department.
They don't-
They're
they-
not even making eye contact.
They don't
with it.
appreciate the greatness that's on display.
Oh man,
Jared
it was
says he loves C.S.
it was
Lewis.
just so worthwhile going to yesterday, and I guess that's why I didn't get a nap yesterday.
Oh yeah. So you still you're paying the piper. You're building up a sleep debt.
Yeah. So
Do you have a favorite C.S. Lewis book?
Screw Tape.
That's
Yeah,
your favorite?
Yeah, I just love it. I read that once a year in college, and I read once a year. I'd read Pilgrim's Progress by Bunyan.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Don't ask me why. I just felt like it was a good discipline for me to do.
Well, Screw Tape, and I would encourage anyone that's joining us today, go back and read that, especially having read it in recent years. It is fascinating how
It really
prophetic
is.
it is.
Well, he said that he got the idea to write that one Sunday morning, sitting in church in the midst of a boring sermon. Well, thank the Lord the guy preached a boring sermon that Sunday, because look what came out of it. The Lord used a boring sermon to birth the Screw Tape Letters.
It is just the way that it's written, sort of the frame story around it. He just cuts all of humanity to the quick when he talks about the sin. It's great about unseen sin. What happens in the mind? How do we trick ourselves into falling into
The guy
patterns
is
of
so
sin?
brilliant. He
Really?
is just so brilliant.
So in touch with human nature.
Isn't he, though? He really was.
Yeah.
The whole thing starts off with the Big Bang. I mean, you're sitting there and all this big screen comes on and you got all this big bang. Well, you know that's what it is. And he comes out and he talks about the illogic of basically believing anything but creation. Just, man, it was good. I wish I had a decent IQ.
Oh, stop it, Pastor.
I really do. I'm telling you, to just sit there and listen to this guy, how he just logically thinks through things.
Well, let's think about, you mentioned before about how the Screw Tape Letters was born out of a boring sermon. Now, yesterday's sermon was not boring.
See, that's why
Yesterday's
everybody
sermon was
jumped
not
up
boring.
yesterday at that and started pointing at me laughing.
Yeah, yesterday. Now, I talked to my
At the
wife.
C.S. Lewis thing.
See, Pastor, see? See, our suffering was for somebody else.
Yeah,
That's
it
what they're
was.
saying.
Yeah.
So I thought that the message yesterday was not boring, but I agree with you that there was some kind of, I don't know if it's the pollen in the air, but there was some kind of sleepy character
Haze.
that was. Did you feel that? Something was going on.
It's the eclipse.
It's
I
the
don't
impending
know.
eclipse, the closeness.
I don't know.
of the
Maybe
moon.
everybody felt yesterday like I feel today. I just kind of feel worn out.
Maybe
tired, lethargic, apathetic, banal, hackneyed, pale.
I'm just.
I don't-
You're doing great. That was 8 or 9 words.
The thesaurus, right?
Yeah, and you say you have a low IQ. Stop it. You've got it all up. It's all up here. He's got it memorized. Really interesting illustration I wanted to dig into for a little bit, because you were talking about how our suffering obviously changes us, but how the Lord, and it is a tough word to hear, but it's a true one, how sometimes our suffering isn't even going to be immediately apparent to us because it's for somebody else. Somebody else needs to see it. You shared this really interesting story.
Oh, about the
going to
guy
China.
and I know you've been in their churches.
Yes, sir. Yes.
I went to, it was an outside service. I was not in a building. You know, it was 400 years before the church ever went into a building, by the way. But over there, it was outside, but it was one of the government 3C or 3 Self,
this 3 Self church, yeah.
the 3 Self church. I always get that messed up. So, I mean, even that government name, that just,
It's awful.
It sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Somebody threw a fire extinguisher that was cut on over the wall in the middle of the sermon, you know, just to disrupt, you know, the kind of deal. And they, of course, paid no attention to it.
Here in America, we do that on purpose. It's called a haze machine.
Yeah, I know. But it was interesting. I understood what this guy was talking about because I had been there. I didn't understand the sermon. I didn't think the guy was dynamic either. Nothing about him stood out as he preached the sermon. There was no inflection, no seemingly real passion. The place was just, it was outside, but there was so many people in there. So, and he gets out of there and he asks the guys, you know, these 4 young men who had just come to Christ, and there were some others with him. He says, you know, is he a good preacher? And they all say, oh, absolutely.
Excellent
He's a
preacher,
great preacher. But they don't base it on his oratorical ability or his prowess in the pulpit or his ability to connect with an audience, we would say.
Right.
It had to do with the fact that the guy had spent 17 years in prison. for preaching the gospel. And they said, yes, he's a great preacher.
I've got so many thoughts about that. One is just like in this era, especially when you can go online and watch any sermon ever, or any sermon that's been videoed, you can watch it immediately. It does seem like we're overemphasizing again, like someone's ability in oratory as opposed to the content of their message. Which obviously, and you've taught me this, like the best sermons are the ones that like are able to combine the biblical heft with that oratorical ability.
Well, you do want to engage the people. You want them to stay engaged. Of course, the Oriental mind is different than the Western mind, for sure.
Well, that's true. The West and the East, you can't overstate how different they are. But, you know, just reading some about preachers in the past, I mean, there's great stories of, you know, we talked about Chrysostom before, you know, the golden-tongued preacher. Obviously, that guy, you know, had great oratorical ability. He was really early. But then you read about somebody like Jonathan Edwards, like who the whole thing about him,
He's just this monotone reading this sermon.
And people these days, they'll do like a performance of Sinners in the Hands of the Angry God, and they'll like yell it and scream it, and like that's not even how he said it, probably.
You know, that's funny because there are those who are far into the Calvinism thing that Jonathan Edwards is kind of they're groupies.
Oh, yeah.
And they want to preach just as boring as he did. You cannot have any emotion whatsoever. You cannot play. Now, I don't want to play on somebody's emotion, but when somebody is preaching and you're preaching dull and boring, you know, come on. Unless God's, you know, that's you and that's just your personality. God will use that. But I like to think surely we ought to have a little passion, a little energy.
I think it's so interesting because in our Western world now we're sort of in the backlash, or like the backlash to the backlash of like, oh well, we've overemphasized emotionalism, you know. And this is something I don't know if I'd have to talk to Charles. I don't know if this is happening as much in the black church, but in the white church for sure. There's all these conversations of like, well, you're being too emotional with it. You need to back it off a little bit. You know, like, but that doesn't hold up cross-culturally.
Well, you know, there's a guy up in North Carolina, I won't be any more specific than that, who on this past Easter said, I'm not going to preach about the blood, I'm not going to talk about the crucifixion, I'm not going to talk about it. And I'm just thinking, well, what in the daylights are you going to do? But he is known for his, no other word to me but showmanship. And so it's all about his showmanship. And it's obvious to me when you go into Easter and when you go into any sermon and you don't put the gospel in it.
Yeah. Well, it's a backhanded kind of comfort, but a comfort nonetheless. Like, this is the kind of thing that's been happening for millennia. Like, people have been trying to just attract people to themselves or to a watered down gospel, a false gospel. They've been trying to do that with spectacle since the beginning. You know, you even have people accidentally. I think it's 1 Corinthians 1. You even have people falling accidentally to the side because they're like ignoring Paul because they want to follow Apollos because he's a better speaker. And Apollos obviously was Orthodox, but like Orthodox.
They liked his rhetoric. They liked the way.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, back to our Chinese friend. It's so interesting that they're willing to fight their own lack of focus because they know who this person is.
Yeah.
They're like, well, he's a great preacher. I'm just going to do whatever I can to listen, even if he's not giving me any help. And that was because he suffered for the gospel. And I thought that made your point beautifully. One thing I thought was interesting, and it's not a counterpoint, but it is a point alongside it. So I had the opportunity to, when I was in training to go overseas, I was with Nick Ripken. You might recognize that name.
Yes, I know him well.
And I didn't know
he's preached for me several times.
That's obviously his pen name because he's been in so many secure countries. But he gave a really interesting talk on how, like, in some places, they've accidentally overemphasized the going to prison thing. And so they're sending these immature believers to prison, and these guys come back and they're lifting up. They're like, go ahead and preach. They're like, we don't even know how to preach.
Yeah.
we believed, but like we were not equipped for what we ended up facing once we were in there. And I was like, wow, that's a big time backfire.
I had not heard that. I've heard him. I know him well. We've had him when we were in Jacksonville. We had him a number of times.
Amazing stories from the field that guy has.
That guy is he is James Bond for God.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, really, really well. To the point to where it has been dilatory toward his health. It has been really bad for his health.
Yeah.
In fact, the last time I talked to him, he was really having some health struggles.
Oh no! I'll try to reach out and encourage him. I didn't even know that was going on.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was an interesting piece because, especially here in America, where, I'll just say here in Alabama, like, do we go through persecution? Well, sure, but is it definitely? It's almost certainly not at like a physical level.
No.
So. We got to be careful, or I'm going to just say I've got to be careful not to like try to run after persecution in some way, because that's not the message that we're supposed to take away from how we suffer for the Lord.
Yeah, no. It's coming. It's coming here,
coming. Yeah.
And it's coming faster than we in the pew realize because we've been so lulled to sleep.
I mean, the eclipse is just hours away.
Well...
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail you that much. But yeah, I know what you're
my mind is shot.
I
now,
know what you're talking about. Yeah, sometimes we want to believe that it's really far off.
Yeah.
But it will happen.
Oh, it'll never happen. Listen, it's happening now.
Yeah.
It's happening to people we don't even know about because the news is not, no news agency is going to carry it.
Sure.
So...
Anyway, I'm glad you took us there talking about what that situation in China, and it's a good idea to pray for what's happening there in China, because the church, even though we don't hear about it, the church is still growing at an astounding rate. People are still coming to faith.
And it's interesting that she is having a team put together a Bible. They're taking the Bible and they're redoing stuff in it.
Xi Jinping, the president of China. Yeah, and of course, how many times has that happened? They redo the Bible, they take out different parts of the Bible. They say, I'm going to make my own Bible. Trump just made his own Bible. I don't even know. Is that the real Bible? Did he change it at all?
Yeah, I think all he's done is
okay. So he's got an American flag on.
He puts the Constitution in it and.
So then you got any old school. You got the Thomas Jefferson Bible. This in the 20th century, the Jesus Seminar Bible. Remember that when they were like, well, we're going to take this part out and take that.
Yeah,
part.
the Jesus Seminar Bible is that it's a page. It's a page between two covers, because they all voted that none of it happened.
We need to do an entire podcast on that, just to talk. It's just amazing. I remember the first time I heard about it.
At least Jefferson left, parts in there. He just cut out the miracles.
Then, of course, you got the Jehovah's Witness Bible. The way that's been edited.
That's its own translation.
That's probably what's going to happen with the Xi Jinping Bible there in China. But the amazing thing is, because you can even find this in the Jehovah's Witness Bible, like. There's even things in there where if you read it carefully enough, you can still see the true gospel.
Yeah.
Like they didn't actually edit everything out. Maybe they thought they did.
They messed up the first chapter of John pretty bad,
Oh yeah.
to prove that Jesus is not the Son of God.
Yeah, the word was a God. So they changed the definite article there.
Yeah.
Watch out for the Watchtower Society, is what we're trying to say there. Do you want to talk at all about the message since?
Since you
maybe I had too much
ruined
coffee
my
today.
brain this morning.
I'm sorry. You said you were tired. I'm just trying to carry the weight.
I don't know. Well, you have done a great job. Yeah, the only other thing to talk about, you've talked about the first 2 points, suffering, and then the salvation part, which is, the Jew and the Gentile. I said this in the early service, did not say it in the second service. Your brain thinks about 500 times faster than you speak. And I was going through my brain thinking, well, should I throw this in? In the first service, I talked about this whole thing between Gentile and Jew.
Yeah.
That we really do have a difficult time understanding it.
That's true.
And I said in the first service, well, it would be like this. Let me just tell you this. It'd be like me saying, I'm resigning today, and I'm going right down the road here, and I'm going to start a dog church. and I'm going to start a church, and I'm going to reach dogs all over this neighborhood, and I'm going to bring them in, and I'm going to baptize as many dogs as I can bring. And you think, well, you know what? You're just crazy, and that doesn't even make sense. Well, that's what the Jews called the Gentiles.
Yeah.
They called them dogs.
They were subhuman. Yeah.
And it was as radical to the Jew to think that the Gentiles could be saved and brought into the body of Christ, or into the body of faith. It's as that was as crazy then as it is for me to say I'm going down here and start a church for dogs.
Well, first of all, you're going to have a chat with Joanna because she really likes.
Listen, I know she'd put her dog there. She'd put her dog in my church.
Joanna's co-pastor, Joanna Horseman. I love that for the dog church.
Well, you can do anything in a dog church.
Yeah.
But see,
I don't know why you're trying to reach them. They all go to
heaven.
heaven.
They all go to heaven. That's what I was fixing to say. They all go to heaven anyway. No cats, but the dogs will be there.
Even your dog?
No, mine will not. And they're not mine, they're Debbie's. Those two little, she has got one now that I am telling you, genuine possessed.
Okay.
It is the most aggravating thing that ever, will not come when you call it, will never shut up barking, sits there and looks at you like you've lost your mind.
This is the dogs, not your grandkids, right?
No, this is the
Okay,
dogs.
got it. Just double checking. So I'm glad you brought this up, and the idea of the Jew and the Gentile, no, there's no way we can get it. We're like 2,000 years removed from that. So we have to be reminded of how big a point that is, and that's why Paul has to talk about it for so long, because it's such a radical idea.
Yeah, if you want an idea of it, you ought to go to Israel with me and watch and observe the Orthodox over there, the Hasidic Jews.
Oh, yeah, the Orthodox Jews, yeah.
In Jerusalem.
They still shun the Gentiles.
Oh, my stars. You don't even exist to it's, speak to the hand. Don't even speak to the hand, and you get a real flavor of what it must have been like.
Wow. Well, I do need to go over there with you.
You're a inconvenience to us.
You've been waiting years to say this to me.
No. You're not.
I just think about
when you come in with one of those, hats on.
Now you told me those hats are like $500.
Oh, listen, they're terribly expensive.
What are they made out of?
Well, depends on those out of Russia have those big fur, those round big fur hats, which are pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
But the other kind of like a fedora.
Yeah.
Oh man, those things are unbelievably expensive.
Man, we need to get a couple of those.
We could be
We'll
like
talk
the
about
Blues
that.
Brothers.
That'd be great. That'd be great stewardship. It's just a fun for you and me to buy those excellent
And
hats.
wear them when we do this.
Do we have any time at all to talk? Great idea. Do we have any time at all to talk about the angels?
Very little.
Very little. Okay.
Yeah.
Because this could have been a whole sermon, Pastor.
Well,
You just
I
went
know
into, like,
that, and
the
I just
doctrine of
wanted
angels.
to touch on it. I've thought about doing a series on angels, but everybody and their brother has done that.
I don't think we've had it here in a long time. Maybe you should do that. I mean, the doctrine of just the unseen spiritual realm is something that's often very misunderstood.
Yeah. Well, I got in verse 10, I told you, anytime you see rulers and authorities, that's what he's talking. And he even explains it here in heavenly places. He's going to come back to that over here in chapter 6, is it? When he's going to talk about spiritual battle and...
Oh yeah, armor of God, the whole thing.
Yeah, all of that. So he's going to get into that part of it. But he's always talking about unseen spiritual beings, created beings when he comes to this rulers and authorities. And
so I find that interesting because he mentions that almost in passing, and he doesn't think anything of it. His audience immediately understood it. We have it elsewhere in the New Testament. Go ahead.
This is what was so is that verse says the manifold, which is the multicolored. It's a word that's used in Genesis.
Coat of many colors,
yeah, the coat of many colors in the Septuagint. Or it can mean facets, like the facets on a diamond,
Yeah.
The multifaceted wisdom of God, or multicolored wisdom, might be made known. All these different facets of God's wisdom might be made known through the church. So it's as if we, the church, not the preacher, not the staff, but the whole of the church is giving an education to these rulers and these authorities that are in heaven places. They're watching us, I think I called it Angel University.
Yeah.
They come to Angel University and they're watching us to get a concept of what it's like for somebody who was a sinner,
Yeah.
deeply involved in sin. My life was led by sin. My life was involved in just rebellion against everything that God wanted me to do. And then how God gets my attention, convicts me, I repent, and eventually come to Him.
And
They're watching all of that.
and they've never personally experienced
No,
that.
they have not.
And yet they know it's a good thing, because you mentioned this one in passing, Luke 15:10.
Yes.
There's joy before the angels of God over
Yeah,
one sinner
yeah.
who repents. That's Jesus talking.
Right, that's
so
right.
he gets that too, obviously.
Yeah, he knows, and I brought it up because I think it's John R.W. Stott that said,
Yeah, you did
we
bring that up.
think that angels know everything,
But they don't.
but they don't.
Right.
They obviously don't understand this or know about this. They only can observe us,
Well, and
and
that's-
how we respond.
That's important as well, just even in the doctrine of spiritual warfare. Like the demons as fallen angels, they don't know everything either.
No,
You
they
know?
don't.
So we shouldn't treat them as omniscient. We got to remember only God holds
Yeah,
that kind of
yeah,
power.
yeah.
Yeah, you got to do. When we get to chapter 6, we got to make you do like a mini series over.
Miniseries.
I'm sure you'll get to it by the time the next eclipse rolls around.
It's like Netflix. Yeah.
Little mini. Oh yeah.
little mini-series.
Little mini series. Well, lots of thanks. Thanks to Krispy Kreme. Thanks as well to.
We thank them every day.
Cracker Barrel. Thank you to. Hey, shout out to the sun, and the moon. Not to mention the stars, and of course this episode is dedicated to the honor of Jimmy Carter. It's been great spending this time with you guys today. Say goodbye, Pastor.
Goodbye, Pastor.